We are in Passau. This is also where the Three Rivers Corner is located. The water of the Ilz comes from the north, colored black by the moorland. It flows into the blue-brown Danube. Shortly afterwards, the Inn is added from the south. Their water from the Swiss Alps is green. This is where the river cruises towards Hungary and sometimes even further begin. But more on that later. The riverbank on the Inn is beautifully landscaped. At the time of the salt trade, the Scheibelinsturm was a landing stage for the Inn ships, and until 1957 a rope ferry ran across the Inn here. Today it is a popular photo motif. The Inn, due to its width, looks like much more water than the Danube. But this is somewhat deceptive, because the Danube is more than twice as deep here at around 7 meters. The people of Passau are almost used to all the water, because floods occur quite often. Then the hotels and restaurants on the riverbank are not usable and are well protected. However, the Blue Danube does not reach the entire old town at high tide, because it is much higher. The Wittelsbach fountain was built in 1903. With him, the city set itself a monument for 100 years of belonging to Bavaria. Max I Joseph was first elector and then the first king of Bavaria. His monument stands in front of St. Stephen's Cathedral. It is considered an authoritative Baroque church north of the Alps. The magnificent interior holds a very special treasure. The largest cathedral organ in the world with 17,974 pipes and 233 stops. (1214) Westoberhaus was founded and expanded over centuries. It is one of the largest and most powerful castle complexes in Europe. Napoleon I used the fortress in his campaign against Austria. Today, the castle is an imposing European cultural monument. The history of the city and region is shown in a museum. In the meantime, some cruise ships are moored at the pier and are almost ready to leave for Austria. We will also be on a ship from here. Farewell to Passau and Germany. A bus took us to the jetty. Now we move into our cabin. All aboard. It can be discarded. First of all, Austria is already on the right, and Germany on the left. The Danube is the national border. Time for a champagne reception in the bar.
Schönen guten Abend, liebe Gäste, noch einmal von meiner Seite und herzlich willkommen zu unserem Willkommenscocktail.
Captain Arnold Poyer also welcomes the guests and gives information about the trip.
Im Namen von ganzer Besatzung herzlich willkommen an Bord bei DCS Amethyst.
The first lock on this route comes into view. The Jochenstein lock is empty. Nevertheless, you have to wait a short time. Then the entrance was cleared. Shortly after we have moored, another ship arrives next to us. Now it goes down about 10 meters. We reach the Wachau, which begins at Melk. On the right-hand side, the landmark, Melk Abbey, comes into view. The Baroque building from the 18th century is a Benedictine abbey and is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The main entrance is on the east side. Parts of a former fortification can still be seen here. We are in the courtyard of the castle-like monastery complex. The oldest still existing school in Austria, the Stift's Gymnasium Melk, is housed in part of the buildings. In earlier times, the abbots greeted their guests here from a balcony. Today, visitors gather here for a guided tour. But you can also look at the facility on your own. Via the Kaisergang and a staircase we reach the Kaisertracht. This was intended for the imperial family. In the middle of the marble hall there was already underfloor heating. The almost 300-year-old ceiling fresco depicts the goddess Pallas Athena and Hercules. The library contains, among other things, 1,800 manuscripts since the 9th century and is divided into 3 floors. The Collegiate Church is considered one of the most beautiful Baroque churches in Austria. Here the Apostle Peter and Paul say goodbye to each other. They were led to the execution on the same day. A central theme of the high altar. The Baroque garden pavilion stands at the end of the monastery park, which is over 250 years old. This is a listed building. We drive to the left side of the Danube. The comparatively mild climate leads to intensive apricot and wine cultivation. The wine specialties are the Riesling, the Grüne Veltliner, and the Neuburger. In the Heurigen businesses, numerous wine growers offer their wine for tasting and also for direct purchase. The ruins of Dürnstein are located above the village of the same name. The blue steeple of the collegiate church is also a landmark and marks almost the end of the Wachau. As early as the end of the 19th century, the first excursionists from Vienna came here. Today there are visitors from many countries. On a Danube cruise, it is worth getting up early. A sunrise is almost always beautiful to look at. In the Wachau and also behind it, the Danube still has a remaining free-flowing section. That means it is still almost original. By the way, the Danube cycle path still runs along here. The Ottensheim lock has a width of 24 meters and is 240 meters long. The skipper steers the ship professionally, just along the wall. Captain Poirier monitors everything closely. After all, he is responsible for everything working out. Shortly afterwards, the second ship arrives again. Here, too, the skills of the bridge crew are absolutely necessary. After we are 12 meters deeper, we continue. On the right-hand side, the Zwentendorf nuclear power plant comes into view. Built in 1972, it never went into operation after a referendum. Let's take a look at the wheelhouse. In difficult visibility conditions, the radar screen helps. It also indicates other ships. There are several skippers on board. This means that the ship, which is around 130 meters long and 40 meter wide, can be driven almost at any time. The wheelhouse must be lowered in front of bridges depending on the water level and bridge height to avoid collision. If many bridges are crossed, the big city is not far away. We reach the capital of Austria, Vienna. Our ship has docked at the jetty of the Reichsbach. There is a lot to discover. But where to go first? It takes us 20 minutes by subway to get to the inner city. First destination, of course, St. Stephen's Cathedral, Vienna's landmark. If you have little time, you can get to know Vienna with a city tour by bus. Or, more leisurely for over 150 years, with a horse-drawn carriage. Passing the Donnerbrunnen fountain from the 18th century, we reach the Albertina Art Museum. We are in the park of the Hofburg. To the right of it is the Butterfly House. On the left side a small park. It is reminiscent of Mozart. We reach the outer castle gate. Behind it is the Heldenplatz with two equestrian monuments. Here is also the entrance to the museum, House of History. In the courtyard of the Emperor Franz Memorial is the Sissi Museum and the seat of the federal president. Shortly back, over the Bergring, and we are already at the most important monument of the Habsburg monarchy in Vienna, the Maria Theresia Monument. We quickly greet Goethe, and a few minutes later we reach the Vienna State Opera. The well-known Prater is a little further away. Although, actually it is only a fixed fun fair. Nevertheless, you should stop by here. The subway now takes us back to the ship. In just under 5 hours, we only got a small impression of the city. But we didn't expect anything else. We leave Vienna again on the Danube as we had reached the city. Through some bridges. The landscape becomes rural again, and quiet. Time for dinner. Around midnight it becomes quiet on the ship. Most passengers don't even notice that we are passing Bratislava. Bratislava is probably the only capital in the world that lies on the border of 3 countries, namely Austria, Slovakia, and Hungary. Around 480,000 inhabitants live in the capital of Slovakia. When cruise ships dock here, the old town is not far away. Just walk in the direction of the SMP bridge, then you're in the right place. At over 400 meters, it is the longest bridge span over the Danube. Past the Slovakian National Theatre, and then the pedestrian zone begins. Here you can stop off at one of the numerous restaurants and cafes. Maybe for an espresso or coffee. Well, there is one on the ship too. So on to explore the city. In the first half of the 20th century, the beautiful Ignatius, a famous oddball. The gaffer. The bronze male figure looks out of a saw shaft. It is the most photographed sculpture in the city. The Michaela Tor with weapons museum and vantage point is part of the fortifications that surround the old town. In the 13th century, St. Martin's Cathedral was built. The cathedral is the largest church building in the city. About 80 meters above the city we reach Bratislava Castle. Formerly the seat of the Hungarian rulers, whose crown jewels were also kept here. Today you can visit the historical museum here. You will learn a lot about Slovakia, from the Middle Ages to the present. A view of the Danube in the direction of Hungary. With only a little over 3 hours of stay, they now have to go back to the ship. But maybe not, without buying another souvenir. Before we reach the last destination of our journey, there will of course be a gala dinner on board. It is shortly before 1 o'clock. Almost everyone is asleep. We reach the Gabikovo lock. The last lock on the way to Budapest. 275 meters long and 34 meters wide. Depending on the water level, the fall height is around 20 meters. In addition to the locks, there are usually also power plants. With 350 megawatts, this is the largest in Slovakia. We reach the Danube knee. First, the Danube turns north, and then turns its basic direction to the south. Unfortunately, you can't see the extinct volcanoes from the shore, which exist here. But the journey goes past overgrown alluvial forests, and islands, picturesque small towns, and villages. We reach the last city on the Danube, which is located on both sides of the river, Budapest. The construction of bridges is expensive and difficult here, as the Danube has a width of almost 500 meters. We drive under the Margaretin Bridge. It was inaugurated for the first time already 1876 and spans the two arms of the Danube. First, yes, all the bridges in Budapest were blown up by the German Wehrmacht in 1945. They were later rebuilt. From here some sites come into view, which we will take a closer look at later. On the left, the Parliament building. On the right is the Buda Castle. Right next to it is the Fisherman's Bastion. Both are located on the Bergberg, the tourist area. At the very back, on Gelert Hill, you can see the fortress with the Statue of Liberty. The next bridge to be passed through is also the first and thus oldest bridge in the city. The chain bridge is still the most important bridge in the city center today. It connects Buda and Pest, formerly two independent cities. The patron saint of Budapest is Gerhard of Xenad. He is venerated as a saint in the Roman Catholic Church. The Liberty Bridge was named after King Franz Joseph I. Here are ship turns and docks. The city can now be explored by scooter, a sightseeing bus or public transport. We reach the Hungarian Parliament building. 1867, Gyula Andrássy was elected Prime Minister of Hungary. The bronze relief shows him as a representative of the Austro-Hungarian monarchy at the Congress of Berlin in 1878. In another relief you can see the coronation ceremony of Franz Joseph of Hungary, in which Andrássy also participated. The Parliament building was built around 130 years ago, as a symbol of national consciousness. With a length of over 250 meters, and a dome almost 100 meters high, it is the largest building in Budapest with almost 700 rooms. A limousine is waiting in front of the entrance. The president of the Swiss Confederation was visiting. During the fascist dictatorship of 1944 and 45, around 80,000 Jews were shot in Budapest. "60 pairs of shoes are a reminder of the mass shootings on the banks of the Danube. It's going down very deep. Here we take the subway to our next attraction. By the way, people over 65 years of age can use all public transport in Budapest free of charge. Otherwise, the single ticket costs €1.20. At the end of the 19th century, the large market hall was built. It is one of the main attractions for tourists. At that time, it was a central place for farmers and traders in the region, who could offer their goods here. You should definitely go upstairs. There are many bistros and snack stands. The food is prepared for viewing. This makes it easier to choose. There are freshly prepared Hungarian specialties and the prices are reasonable. Then we have another tip. About 1 kilometer from the market hall, almost in the middle of Pest, was the former Jewish ghetto. From October 1944, it existed here for just under 2 months before the Jews were liberated by the Soviet army. From the outside, the houses may almost look like ruins. Inside, they have been modernized in a contemporary way. Shops, restaurants and bars, so also the notorious ruined bars moved in. Today here is the street food area of Budapest. A motto should be, only those who have tasted a country have really traveled it. So we try the specialties of the city. How about a Hungarian goulash with vegetables? If you walk a little further along the street, think there are only residential buildings. Then you reach a courtyard where more street food is offered. Back to the Danube. Back to the Liberty Bridge. We take the train to Buda on the other side of the river. The well-known 5-star Hotel Gelet was built over 100 years ago. It was named after Saint Gerhard, which means gelat in Hungarian. This includes the Gelet bath. It is one of the most beautiful thermal baths in Hungary, with many different pools. A little further north, at the level of the chain bridge, our next destination is on the Berg. Down below, in front of the beach cable car station, a slightly longer queue has already formed. After waiting a good 20 minutes, we drive up the mountain in just 1.5 minutes. At the exit is the official and residence of the President of Hungary, Thomas Sulyok. Right next to it is the entrance to the largest building in Hungary, the Budapest Castle Palace, formerly the seat of the Hungarian kings. Today, museums have moved in here. At night, this building is also beautifully illuminated, just like the Fischer Bastei right next door. Here the Matthias Church marks the square. It dates back to the 13th century. At that time, the namesake married in it. Stephen I was the first king of the Kingdom of Hungary founded by him. He is considered the national saint of the country. In the Middle Ages, the Buda fish market was located here. The Fishermen's Guild had to defend this section of the city wall. Today, the Bazaar building is above all a hotspot for die-hard Instagram residents. For us, the journey ends here. But the Danube continues to flow. In about 1,600 kilometers it will flow into the Black Sea. It will flow through 5 other countries. So there is certainly much more to discover along the Danube.